The Ford Focus ST isn't just another hot hatchback, you know. It is precisely the sort of hot hatchback that might one day end up on your company car list, maybe, just maybe, on your driveway. Between this and the Volkswagen Golf GTI, it dominates the UK market for hot hatchback in terms of sales. This one's all new, it's got a new engine, all sorts of new bells and whistles, which we're about to tell you all about. And we've come here to the rather windy Côte d'Azur to have a little go.
If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe below.
Right then, welcome to the new Focus ST. This is it, fast Ford fans. First impressions are pretty good.
In this film, I'm just going to cover the 2 or 3 things that you're likely to want to know and that will determine how this car drives.
The first, it seems to me, in this new generation 2.3 EcoBoost turbo engine. The last car was a 4-cylinder 2-litre, wasn't it? So it now goes up to 2.3. In the same way that the Focus RS had a 2.3, this is a new generation engine though. So it's not just a detuned version of the RS engine, it's something new. Here it's making 276 horsepower and 310 pound-foot of torque, which I think is more torque than the Focus RS had. It's more torque than a Civic Type R has. It's plenty, isn't it? And you can have it through this 6-speed manual box or through a new 7-speed automatic, but in both cases through the front wheels only. So how is it? Well, a few interesting things. One of the features that Ford has added is something called anti-lag. Now you would think that might make the car sound a bit like some sort of mad 1980s Group B rally car. And I don't know if you've noticed, but it doesn't. And apparently the Ford GT had it and the F-150 Raptor had it, and now they've put it on this 4-cylinder engine, allegedly to improve that sort of transient throttle response. Now I'm a bit disappointed that it's not something you can hear, because it's a pretty unique technology. I can't think of another hot hatchback that has anti-lag, and I think it's a shame you can't hear more of it, but I suppose it's there to sharpen up the car's throttle response. And I tell you what, there's not a lot wrong with the way the engine picks up in this car. And I suppose thinking back, the Focus RS didn't have the greatest throttle response initially. It was strong when it got going, but it sort of took the blink of an eye, let's say, or a little bit longer maybe, to get on with it. Whereas this really pulls strong from the middle of the rev band, really fast. Sounds good as well. Different from the last ST. So that 2-litre always felt like it was there in lieu of a 2.5, didn't it? We all remember the 2.5 litre 5-cylinder Focus ST Mark 1. And I think when the Mark 2 came along, maybe it felt like it had to do a little bit of an impression of a 5-cylinder, because that's what we all expected.
But maybe this one has earned the right just to be its own thing, just to be a 4-pot turbo, so that's what it sounds like.
It's still a bit bassy and a bit warbly, but doesn't seem quite so overdone. You know, there is some sort of digital engine noise manufacturing going on, something called electronic sound enhancement. But it's not, you know, it's not sort of obtrusive, it doesn't sound too contrived. I've got it in sport mode now and I'm just driving it, and it probably makes it a bit louder, but it doesn't sort of come between you and the character of the engine, which is good.
The 2019 Focus ST has had an interior revamp too.
We know we're in a Focus ST, don't we? Because it says ST on the sports seats, an ST on the floor mats, and there's an ST here on the flat bottom steering wheel. But it's basically the same wheel you get in a Fiesta ST, but for a couple of extra buttons here. These are the sport mode / drive mode buttons. You've got a one button here that goes direct to sport mode via one press, like that, and then you can just cycle through the other ones with the other button there, and there's a normal mode, there's a slippery mode, and a track mode. And they say the adaptive dampers are twice as stiff, I think, in track mode as they are in normal, so that's quite a big range of operation. The seats are pretty comfy, they're probably a bit lower and a bit better than we're used to in a Focus ST. Normally these cars, they make you sit slightly higher than you like, but this driving position is pretty good. I don't mind the flat bottom steering wheel. I suppose it sort of gets the bottom bit out of the way of your knees, but I'm not struggling for room. So the other reason you know you're not in a Golf GTI is because this is a Focus and the perceived quality is sort of only okay. There are nicer bits, like the air vents and the gear lever, and there are pretty ordinary average bits, like some of the console plastics around the gear lever here and some of the door mouldings, and it's just all a bit monotone and a bit cheap here and there. But I suppose that's always been the bargain that fast forwards have struck. You know, your money's always gone into the driving experience and not into the indicator stalks. Why is that beeping? The other cool thing you get here is an extra display mode for the trip computer. So you can go past all your fuel economy information and all of your settings, and you can find the My Trip screen, and that My View, sorry, and that gives you engine oil temperature, engine oil pressure, and turbo boost. Now, turbo boost gauges I'm kind of take or leave, but I do like a nice oil temperature gauge because that tells you when your oil's nice and warm and you can drive like a hero.
Now, next on the list is the ST's new eLSD.
Now that sounds like something that you would hope your teenage daughter might not bring back from a music festival. But no, it is of course an electronic limited slip differential. Now, that's something that fast forwards have long had an association with since the Mark 1 Focus RS with its quaif slippy diff. Memory serves, the last Focus ST didn't have one, but lots of this car's rivals, they do have them. So Megane RS 280, the Honda Civic Type R, they all have sort of helical torque sensing torsion slippy diffs.
But this car has the same kind of electronic slippy diff as the Volkswagen Golf GTI Performance. VW calls it something else, of course, but it's the same technology. It's basically two drive shafts, the one rotating inside the hollow cavity of the other one, and they both run from outputs from the front diff, but there's a clutch in between them to lock their rotational speed.
So basically the car can choose, the electronics can choose how much it wants to lock up those front drive shafts together in order to split torque between the outside wheels. What it can't do, and as far as I'm aware, no fast front driver can do this yet, it can't vector torque to the outside wheel sort of asymmetrically. So the expensive e-diffs on Ferrari supercars and Aston Martins and things can actually overspeed the outside wheel of a car in a corner to rotate the chassis. That's not quite what this technology does. This technology is basically just locking the front drive shafts together so you get a 50-50 split like a locking diff would, although it's not a locking diff.
So what we've got is a front end that's pretty pointy.
It makes the car agile as you want it to be. Steering's the fastest Ford Performance has ever fitted, so faster still than the steering on the current Fiesta ST, which was the fastest before this. It's fixed ratio, so the days of those variable ratio steering systems on Focus STs are gone. And the tyre is a Michelin Pilot Sport 4, so it's a sort of a mid-range sports tyre. It's not a cup tyre or anything, but it works well on these roads. Plenty of grip. And yeah, what you need on a car like this is a sort of an engine and a steering system and a front suspension system and a diff that all combine to allow you to have a really close working relationship with your front contact patches. That's what you need. So you can get everything going from that outside front tyre and really enjoy herring down a road like this, knowing that you're getting every bit of performance you can out of your affordable fast Ford, I should say. So the steering feel on this car is pretty good actually. You can tell that they've had a go at more than just the power steering cal. I mean, this car has its own steering knuckles, so the points for the steering system are differently positioned. It's all done to give you a bit more feedback through the steering, and it works. They've obviously been developing the steering system for a while, and they know that having quickened it up, they were always at risk of losing a bit of feel, so they've had to do more to bring it back in, and it's worked.
So what else is there to tell you about the chassis? It's a pretty standard performance suspension makeover really. You get springs that sit you 10mm closer to the ground, you get re-rated anti-roll bars and dampers that are about 20% stiffer at the front axle and 13% stiffer at the rear.
And you get CCD, which is Ford parlance for adaptive dampers, as standard on petrol hatchbacks. There is a diesel Focus ST available too, but that doesn't get the adaptive dampers as standard, and you can get petrol or diesel estate version of the car. I believe those have to have adaptive dampers optioned onto them. So the petrol hatch is the only one that gets them as standard. They give the car that breadth of character, that versatility.
Again, that's a first for a Focus ST. It's never had adaptive dampers beforehand, so another string to the bow of this car.
It'll matter to Focus ST buyers because they are the kind of drivers who use their cars every day for everything, and they probably will use them in a way where they'll want to, they'll want it to be a comfy car from time to time. They'll want to stick it in normal mode and just sort of plod around a bit and not really feel too bothered about the fact that they just want to use it as transport. There'll be times where, these cars are used exactly like that, and there'll be times when you sort of get on it a bit and you want to go into sport mode or track mode and you want every little last bit of body control and grip that you can get out of the car. I think with cars like Focus ST and Golf GTI, that breadth of ability is getting more and more important. So where does that leave us? Well, there wouldn't be an awful lot of point in me sitting here and telling you this is the greatest hot hatch of its kind, bar none, by a country mile, would there? Because without having that conversation with a Honda Civic Type R and Golf GTI and maybe one or two others in the mix, it would be a bit of a hollow verdict. So we'll do the group testing later, we will. But if this isn't right up in contention, I will be very surprised. Fast forwards, they just get that compromise so right. They know how much speed and grip and agility these cars need, how much fun factor they need. They know they need to basically turn out a more engaging driver's car than the average hot hatchback, and they do it consistently. But they also know with an ST that it's a mistake to go too far, to dial it up too much, to take the car out of sort of Golf GTI territory in terms of usability and comfort. And so what they do is they match a Golf GTI for sort of everyday through the drudge usability, and then they go and beat it for driver appeal. And if that sounds like it ought to be a compelling package, well, believe me, it is.